and to get an idea of the values and courage honored and stimulated by the Difference Day Honorary Title, let's have a look at the distinguished laureates of previous years.
亲爱的朋友，大家好，现在是2020年的2月19号晚上10点，街道上几乎没有人。就如果凭着我在街上找的话，除了这座城市现在处于瘫痪状态之外，我找不到可以说的东西，因为一切都在掩盖之下。这就是这个国家现在面临的问题。我们一切反对的意见都可能是谣言，因为有了掩盖，因为有了真理的唯一出口，那其他的声音都是谣言。就连我们自己的生命也不在自己的手中，以防疫的目的把我们囚禁起来，限制我们的自由。我们千万不能和陌生人讲话，这是危险的。所以没有真相的话，一切都没有意义。我们如果不能去获取真相，我们不能够打破这种真相垄断的局面的话，这个世界对我们毫无意义。
Every year, on the occasion of Difference Day and World Press Freedom Day, our two universities, the Vrije Universiteit Brussel and Université Libre de Bruxelles, award the honorary title for freedom of expression. It is an opportunity to highlight and reward the extraordinary contributions made by journalists, writers, or organizations of freedom of thinking, freedom of expression, and freedom of press.
This year's title goes to Miss Zhang Zhan. Zhang Zhan, a 37-year-old Chinese citizen journalist who covered the coronavirus outbreak in Wuhan. She reported on what she saw on the street and in the hospitals. In her reports, widely shared on social media, she made clear that pandemic was not under control. She was speaking truth to power, and she paid a high price for it. According to Chinese authorities, Zhang Zhan was a troublemaker. She was sentenced to 4 years of prison.
In an interview before her arrest, she declared, and I quote, "Maybe I have a rebellious soul. I'm just documenting the truth. Why can't I show the truth? I won't stop what I'm doing because this country can't go backwards. Zhang Zhan, even though you cannot see us, you cannot hear us, we would like to address you directly, as if you were here with us this evening."
Zhang Zhan, your strong belief in transparency, your belief in freedom of expression for the common good, your belief in independent, fact-based journalism, it reflects everything Difference Day stands for. It reflects everything our university stands for. it reflects what we all stand for.
And therefore, the Brussels Universities, Vrije Universiteit Brussel, and Université Libre de Bruxelles, united in the Brussels University Alliance, have decided to jointly award
the Difference Day Honorary Title for freedom of expression to Zhang Zhan for a vital and courageous contribution to the freedom of thinking, writing, and expression.
Thank you. In normal circumstances, we would now go to China to talk to Zhang Zhan, but we know by now that she cannot be here because she was sentenced at the end of December last year to 4 years imprisonment, officially for picking quarrels and provoking trouble. We all know by now that the real reason for her conviction was her work as a citizen journalist during the beginning of the corona pandemic in Wuhan early last year, because she told and showed the narrative of the pandemic that China did not want to be told. She's not the only citizen journalist to run into trouble, but she is the first to be sentenced after the beginning of the pandemic. To protest her treatment, she also went on a hunger strike last year, which undermines and still undermines her health. Zhang Zhan cannot be here, but to represent Zhang Zhan, we are fortunate to have Jane Wang from London, who is very active in trying to free Zhang Zhan and other political prisoners in China. Jane Wang, you have the floor for a short reaction.
Thank you so much. It is my great honor to receive this award on behalf of imprisoned Zhang Zhan. I have never met her in real life, but I have talked to people who know her personally. I'm the spokesperson for Zhang Zhan Concern Group, a group dedicated to telling her story to the world. Zhang Zhan once said, "We should seek truth and seek it at all costs." Her story is all about seeking truth at all costs. For decades, people of China have always been subjected to man-made catastrophes. The Great Famine, the Tiananmen Square massacre, the camps in Xinjiang, to name but a few. Even with natural disasters, government cover-ups result in undue panic, unnecessary deaths, and unwanted grief, making human suffering even more unbearable. Zhang Zhan witnessed the muted anguish of people in Wuhan. The bereaved are not even allowed to mourn. People long for truth and justice in China so that healing could take place. Do not let China regress into another North Korea. This is a message to the world from Zhang Zhan. The ongoing pandemic is a wake-up call. Suppressing facts, withholding data, whitewashing, disinformation, these are all totalitarian instincts. The Communist Party of China can't help but lie, even when public health is involved and the whole world is at stake. A high-tech totalitarian China is proven to pose a serious threat to humanity. Truth has always been the most expensive thing in the world. It is our life, said Zhang Zhan. How right Zhang Zhan is. Look at the enormous death tolls and damages caused by the ongoing pandemic. If only the world had known the truth about this virus in those crucial early days and weeks. Zhang Zhan has been silenced. Another citizen journalist, Fang Bin, is still missing. It's forced to us to keep seeking the truth. Let us be inspired by Zhang Zhan's courage and unyielding spirit. She never gives up. We shouldn't either. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane Wang. Maybe let's go back to the beginning of the pandemic. Zhang Zhan was not a professional journalist. She was a lawyer. Why did she decide to go to Wuhan, a city that was completely closed off and which was also dangerous to be in?
You see, when Wuhan was suddenly put into lockdown in January, on the 23rd of January, it caused massive panic because it reminded people what happened in 2003 in other disasters. People wanted to know what's going on. And the cover-up was already causing lots of anguish in Wuhan people. Zhang Zhan was one of the citizen journalists to go into that place, to go into the front line, to report what's going on. And citizen journalists is not a paid job. It's a very dangerous job. As we all know, in China, what would happen to them? So Zhang Zhan went there. She faced two risks. One was to be, infected by the virus. Another is to be arrested. But she just went there courageously to do the job because she wanted to be there. And she heard people were crying out for help. She saw an online post from a Wuhan citizen saying that he felt he was left there to die. No one was listening to people like him. So actually, she went there with a desire to help people.
Can you say that she discovered things that might have angered the Chinese authorities that explained the reason why she was later on arrested?
Yes, she kept asking questions. In her videos, you can see she asked where the virus came from, how many people actually died. Could it have been different? She asked for accountability. She asked for how much people were suffering in terms of human rights. Lots of her reporting was contrary to the party lines. For example, she disclosed the hospitals were overwhelmed, people were struggling financially, food shortage, they were trapped in their homes.
And these things were not known at that moment in China?
At that time, the official narrative was by the government. They were trying to put people look at what so-called positive energy. So in China, state media always prevent people from telling their real stories. You barely can see what happens to the real people in real life. They only allow you to see what they want you to see. That's why citizen journalists are a treasure, especially when the humanitarian crisis happens.
Yeah, you already told it was dangerous to work, but how could she work? The streets were empty, so she was noticeable. When she was walking on the street, like we saw in the short video, she didn't have an accreditation, so she was not protected. How could she do what she did?
She had the skills to bypass China's Great Firewall.
Because she was a lawyer.
Yes, she's a trained lawyer, you're right. So she's got the legal expertise. She knows how to protect herself in her reporting. So she can confidently say, everything I report here is facts. They are proven facts. Nothing is rumor. And she also got the courage. That's the most important thing at that time.
She was not arrested while she was in Wuhan. She was only arrested later on. Was there any reason given why she was arrested?
Actually, she was arrested from Wuhan. She got warning signs repeatedly because she was followed everywhere. And in the hotel room, Wuhan hotel where she was staying, 4 people checked in who apparently had the job of keeping an eye on her. And she also got a warning from her friend in Shanghai on the 30th of April that she was questioned by Shanghai police. So everything pointed to her being arrested too soon. Nonetheless, she carried on. She really didn't want to leave the city. She's got lots to do. She wants to talk more about the people's plight there. What's the real situation? And these people need help. Things are not like what the CCTV tells you.
already mentioned in my introduction that when she was arrested and was imprisoned, she went on hunger strike. But what were the reasons to go on hunger strike?
It's an extreme way of protesting her innocence. She went on full hunger strike for at least 6 months, as far as we know. And even since she was sentenced, she remains to be on a partial hunger strike. She does this in a very clear way. She says repeatedly to her lawyers that she wanted to keep protesting. Also, as a Christian, she is called to fast and pray for China, for justice.
There was a trial on the 28th of December. Was the conviction already clear from the beginning, or was it a real trial?
It's very clear right from the beginning that it's politically motivated prosecution. It's not a fair trial. It only lasted barely two hours. None of the witnesses was called to court, and the lawyers were not given the opportunity to cross-examine any witness.
And it was also very short.
Very, very short, very brief, rushed.
You also mentioned in your reaction that she's not the only citizen journalist. Can you say that these citizen journalists are a real headache for the Chinese authorities? Because they cannot control them?
They are, I believe so. They are dangerous in the eyes of the Chinese government because they seek truth, they keep asking questions, they've got critical thinking, they don't believe the party line. And they are not the only headaches in the eyes of the Chinese authorities. They are human rights activists, they are human rights lawyers, NGO workers, religious groups that refuse to be controlled by the party. Anyone who dares to question, ask for government accountability, it is a threat, basically.
Not everybody is supportive of her work. In China, you read online accusation that she is having bad intentions, people asking who is sponsoring her messages. Do Chinese know what she did? Did she have an influence on the way Chinese people are thinking about this coronavirus?
I'm afraid it's questions that makes me sad because the majority of Chinese people do not have the means to bypass China's Great Firewall. So many are completely wrapped up in Xi's China dream, and they don't get to see the truth. So many people are not aware of Zhang Zhan's story and her sacrifice even. But Zhang Zhan's friend, I quote one of her friends' words, Zhang Zhan devotes herself to the mission of fighting for freedom for everyone. The spiritual genealogy of Chinese people is actually written by humble, unflappable, noble people like Zhang Zhan.
Maybe a lot of people will say, yes, what happened to her is a Chinese problem. It doesn't affect us. How do you react to that?
Zhang Zhan's story is inspiring because she lets us know the Chinese narrative, the official narrative posed to the world by the Chinese government is not necessarily the full picture, not necessarily the truth. Have you ever seen the real stories that happened in Wuhan? I'll just give you a few. A man with kidney disease jumped to his death from his apartment balcony after he couldn't get to hospital for dialysis. A 17-year-old boy with cerebral palsy starved in January after his father, who was his sole carer, had been taken into enforced quarantine. A 6-year-old boy was found to have been left with the body of his grandfather for days. He survived on biscuits. I could have gone on. So,
and of course, the fact that we don't have public in this venue is also a fact that the coronavirus came from there. That if maybe there would have been more citizen journalists, we wouldn't be stuck with this coronavirus here.
Exactly, that's the point. One thing is what happened in early days. How did the pandemic start? What should have become different was that the Chinese government party, the Chinese Communist Party at least covered up the virus for at least 3 weeks. That's what we already know. So by the end of December, there were at least 27 cases of known reported cases. But actually, on the 18th of January, there was a mega dinner party attended by 40,000 people, Wuhan people. That's how they didn't care about human life. This is the one thing. The other thing is what happened during the lockdown. A government cannot justify a policy which causes people to die of something else other than coronavirus. That's not a story of success. In a country where there is no human rights, no rule of law, no free press, if the government boasts of its success, you have to question what's the real picture, how much actually people suffered because of the government policy.
Thank you, Jane Wang. Let's go to Karel in the royal box to see what reactions there are. This is a live event. What reactions there are on this honorary title for Zhang Zhan. Karel, you have the floor.
Well, there are a lot of people who are really, really impressed by the work that she has done and the sacrifice that she made, because she said you have to go after the truth, whatever it takes. So it confronts us ourselves with what we are doing and how far we are willing to go. There is only one question that keeps coming up in different forms, and that is, how is she doing now? What's her health status? And also, what can we do in countries where there is more freedom of the press to help her? Or there's sometimes even people thinking that the more attention her work gets outside of China, the more trouble she gets in jail. So it's a dilemma, and people are struggling with that.
Jane Wang, I don't know if you have an answer to this.
Thank you for the questions. I'm so grateful for people's concern. At the moment, Zhang Zhan remains on partial hunger strike. Her health is obviously will be deteriorating further. We are very, very concerned that she will be subjected to further torture and mistreatment because of her defiance, because of her perseverance. Chinese prisons treat prisoners of conscience with extreme inhumane measures to try to break down their will. So Zhang Zhan is in danger. Constant public attention to her case will definitely be helpful, because that will mean that everyone is expecting to see her walk out life of the Shanghai women's prison at the end of her 4-year sentence. We want to know how she's doing. At the moment, things are not looking good, because her mother has not been given permission to visit her in prison. She has not been able to see her daughter even once. This already nearly 1 year now. The 14th of May marks her first anniversary of her arrest. So we are very concerned. What we can do, firstly, at least we can keep asking for Zhang Zhan's welfare. We can write to her at Shanghai Women's Prison. The address is online. If you follow, just check Free Zhang Zhan, change.org. That is constantly updating on her situation. Beg your pardon. Secondly, we can also pay more attention to human rights in China. That's all Zhang Zhan wants to see, because at the moment people are so deceived by the Chinese government's response in the pandemic. So some people mistakenly think that human rights can be sacrificed for pandemic control. That's completely wrong. And China's human rights situation has worsened so much in recent years. We all want to know what's happening in Xinjiang, what's happening in Tibet, in Hong Kong, and as well in China. So Zhang Zhan tells us just before in the documentary before she was arrested, she said, if you speak out for justice, for social justice, that's to speak out for me. So I think unless China is free, people like Zhang Zhan can never be truly free, if you see what I mean. Even if she's out of prison, she will be followed everywhere by political police. She will not be free. There will not be freedom, real freedom for her.
Thank you, Jane Wang. We have to keep it with this because our time is not unlimited. Thank you for your interesting explanation about Zhang Zhan and public attention. That's what we did the past, let's say, 20 minutes. We gave public attention to her case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and when we